Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment on The Weekend Show. With less than 8 months to the 2023 elections, we have seen loads of Nigerians now interested in the voting process, with multiple young people speaking up about politics and also trying to register to vote. However, with by-elections, which we've seen in places like Lagos State and also the Ekiti State elections, there's still a large percent of voter apathy. While people are hurrying to get their voters' cards, we still realize that when it comes to elections, the numbers are still low. What's the reason for it? However, we've also seen a lot of grievances from several people who have won or lost primaries, and we've seen a lot of the campaign. And we wonder how that affects the 2023 elections. Discussing voter registration and apathy, we have with us
Cynthia Mbamalu, Director of Programs, Yiaga Africa, and Agbashi Benjamin Terungwa, who is representing Tiv constituency in Vandika local government area of Benue State. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Good morning.
So before we come to Cynthia, you won your primaries.
Yes.
To run in the next elections.
That's true.
And I hear it was miraculous.
Yeah,
why is your story different?
My story was different because when God is involved in any project, definitely you will see a lot of hitches, but there are sure hitches that you will overcome. That's why I say it's miraculous. And then secondly, the turn of events in our politics today has clearly shown that money politics is gradually going away. A lot of people have decided to see that whatever it is they've been complaining of should now be seen differently. Why do I say so? A lot of people were of the opinion that even if you don't vote, the elites will bring in whoever they wish. But the story is different today. A lot of people have decided now to go in, get their PVCs, basically because they've discovered that the destiny of this nation is in their hands. And it is by these votes that they will definitely change bad leadership to whatever it is that God wants them to do.
So you say money politics is gradually leaving. Fingers crossed, even though with what we saw at the presidential primaries, I can't be so sure about that. However, we've seen in the National Assembly a huge percentage of senators will not be returning with their original parties. And we've also seen in some of the state National Assembly offices. Why do you think this has changed significantly this year?
Yes, the narrative has changed. The reason is because a lot of political sensitivity has come on board and people are beginning to see differently that why can't we change things not by violence but by democratic process. If you look at the case of DR Congo, a lot of monies have been spent, a lot of people have used monies to see how far they can stay in control of whatever region they want. Nigeria has been so blessed. The only thing we've not gotten it right is this drive we are embarking on to see that we elect those who will do the right things, those who will be able to see the challenges our society has gone through over the years, those who will see how things can be changed. And these are the reasons why a lot of people are coming on board thinking that, okay, with this, we should be able to do the needful.
Well, Cynthia, do you agree with Agbashi when he says there's a reduction in money politics right now, particularly what we saw happen last weekend in Ekiti?
Well, I agree with his optimism because we all need to be optimistic in this system, especially as we're gearing towards the next elections, where we're hoping that the young people will change the game. When I say change the game, that would increase turnout and it would influence the outcome in a way that benefits the nation. But when it comes to money politics, that's still that's the big elephant in the room. It still bedevils our system in Ekiti. It was, I think I almost cried because sometimes there are some things you observe. You don't know how to justify what you're seeing because money has become a permanent, not permanent now, a permanent feature. I'm not saying permanent because I'm hoping in some years' time we would get rid of it. is becoming playing a prominent feature in our elections. So even before elections day, Young Africa is watching it. We had a pre-election observation that ran for a period of 3 months before the elections. One consistent feature was voter inducement. And what we saw in Ekiti was that when it came to campaigns, we had less rallies. You know, normally you have street rallies, campaign meetings, all these, you know, fun fairs that you have for the elections. There was less of that actually in Ekiti. And we thought, okay, this is parties changing strategy, because what we were recording was door-to-door campaigns. Subsequently, when we dug further and investigated, it was basically door-to-door distribution of monies and gifts. So it was voter inducement, but now no longer come to rally and we distribute. So you will see pictures of, you see many pictures from Ekiti of rallies where they were giving bags of rice, all those things you see before. Yeah. If you follow through Ekiti, it's almost like there were no campaigns happening. It was strategic now. They were going home to home. Every home, okay, how many are you? This is the amount we'll give you. This number of votes we need from this house, from this house. So it became almost a community arrangement, right? And that was really saddening, because when you see politicians devising these means, rather than sharing your agenda, what you have for the people, what you're doing is looking for how to buy them. So it was almost like there was the prepaid part and there was the postpaid part when it came to vote buying. And on elections day, it did play out. It wasn't as blatant, so you need to look deep to know, okay, this is what is happening, because they were a bit more intentional in how they shared the monies and the resources. So it's quite worrisome, because votes are beginning to count, whether we like it or not. Ekiti had a very, we saw a marked improvement of the process compared to FCT, for instance, and even Anambra. And we saw how the bimodal voter accreditation system, the BVAS, was deployed and it worked effectively across, reasonably across board. And we also saw how the results, by 9 p.m. on elections day, polling unit level results, over 80% of them were already uploaded on the INEX result portal. So people could actually view the polling unit level results from where they were. That shows that there is some level of transparency in the system. So votes are beginning to count. But the votes that are counting are the votes that are bought. And these politicians know this. So when they say, what's the value of your vote? You vote because you want to choose your leader. That is democracy, right? But now it's almost like the value of your votes, how the politicians interpret it is, how much can I buy the votes of each voter? And that is what is now counted. And I wish citizens would understand that no matter the monies they give to you, it can't sustain you for so long, right? Money will finish somehow. Even if you got it in thousands of dollars, like the delegates who hammered big during the primaries, even the thousands of dollars would one day finish. But the question is, at what cost? So you sell the vote, you sell your mandate. You've mortgaged the future, but you've also sold our system, because the system will not get better. These guys spend so much money to get elected. They get into office, they recoup, which is why we're not seeing development. When we say, well, we're not moving forward, we also contribute to not moving forward, because when we sell our votes, we also lose. We don't know how to hold people accountable. So they go in, they rob us of our national wealth. We don't progress. Every elections, they come back to us and they want to use monies to buy our votes again. And we're willing to give that. And we say people are hungry. I get it. There is poverty. People are hungry. However, when we don't justify criminality use hunger to justify criminality, why do we use it to justify vote buying? If someone steals your phone and starts to run and you shout, ole, 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 people would catch that person. It depends on, no, because I'm hungry, I wanted to steal the phone to buy. They will not just say, oh, that is why you stole. People will still beat that person up. When someone steals a loaf of bread in the market, people chase him or her and still beat the person for stealing it. So if we can't use criminality to justify hunger, if we can't use hunger to justify criminality, when it's just a loaf of bread, why is it easy for us to use it to justify stealing our votes, which is the basis of our existence as a people within a democracy? And I think we need to start thinking about that, because that is the only way we can beat the politicians at the game. They are no longer campaigning telling us issues. And those that have the powers and the right mandates and the quality, they are not getting into office because they don't have the kinds of monies to buy. So it's almost like those that can represent us well, we're not voting for them because they're not giving us money. We're voting for people that cannot represent us well because they're giving us money, and tomorrow want the system to change. How?
So Cynthia, Of course, I must give credit to Yaga Africa because I've followed closely, like we say, under the sun and in the rain.
Yes.
We've gone for protests, we've gone for marches, and the Not Too Young to Run bill was passed. Since 2015 to 2019, we've seen an increased number of voter registration.
Yeah.
However, people who have won elections have not had more than 20 million votes, or even up to in the last 8 years, which is scary. I say this almost every week, and I'll continue to say it every week on the show, that since February, Nigerian universities have been on strike. Our students are at home.
Yeah.
Electricity supply between March and now has been extremely poor.
Yeah.
There has been fuel scarcity since February till now. No one is asking the right questions of the candidates. But we see young people running into polling registration centers to vote. But when it comes to voting, there's still a high level of apathy. See Ekiti State, we're just having that conversation. Not up to 40% of the registered voters came out to vote. So what happens?
I think, one, a lot of people look at the permanent voters card as an identity card. So there are some who register because they need to use the card to open an account. So it's a form of identity, right? However, when it comes to registration, there's a lot of interest. We saw that in 2018 before the 2019 elections, and turnout was 35%. We're seeing that now, and I'm praying and hoping with you, because I also hear you say this, that by the next elections, we will change the trend.
Yes.
I think towards CVR, during the registration process, there's a lot of drive and a lot of excitement about registering to have your PVC. We have lots of campaigns, get your PVC. Influencers are out there encouraging people to get their PVCs. You know, even us, we have all these concerts. When we go in Lagos, had a concert, we're looking at young people dancing and saying, yes, I have my PVC. In my mind, I'm like, I hope all of you would come out to vote, because Lagos State youth voter turnout for the last elections was 4.9% for presidential election youth voter. And Lagos has a large population of young registered voters. So you can imagine that it's just not up to 10%. So I think there is this excitement during the CVR registration process that is not sustained towards the elections. And I'm hoping that this time around we are more intentional, that post this drive to get people registered, we start focusing on the issues. Campaigns will be longer now. With the new law, campaigns would run for 150 days before the elections, meaning longer time. I'm hoping individuals, we have candidates who would be contesting, that they use this 150 days to begin to engage voters. But that young people too, voters, I'm saying young people because young people are the majority of the voters. In fact, INEC's recent data on the new registrants shows that youth vote registers are over 70% are between 18 to 34 years old. So you can see young people can determine the outcome of the election. Imagine if 60% of young people turn out to vote. We change the game, because you cannot buy everybody, right?
Sure.
There's only a few number. And I think now the thing is to start engaging candidates on what we, the people, need from them. Let's change the way they campaign. Let us set the agenda rather than having them set the agenda. But the most important thing is, as we've gone through the stress to register, please let us sustain that energy. That on elections day, sometimes the process has its challenges. But from Ekiti, INEC is really doing its best to get the process to work. The new law is also going to enable transparency in the process. So let us trust that our votes will count and come out in that number to vote. Because if we register now and get all the millions on the register, but we don't come out to vote, then at the end it doesn't make any sense, because only those who vote determine the outcome of the elections.
Okay, so like Cynthia said, it's one thing to go register and get your PVC. It's another thing to actually go and vote at the polls. What do you have to say in regards to voter apathy? That's the lack of interest. Because I could be interested, like she said, there's this drive to go get your PVC, but when it's time to actually go vote, there's this lack of interest. Like, will it really count? Should I really go? What causes that reluctance?
Well, there are a few issues or factors that are responsible for all of this. One major factor I can clearly say is that how much orientation has these people been given? That is one factor. And when you orientate somebody, you also make him to understand certain things that are very, very cogent. A few days I was privy to go around and speak to some of the youths. I was of the opinion that, one, if you register and you don't vote, your vote may have changed the destiny of your own society. But failure to do that, whatever way you come around complaining, it will never be seen as anything. So the orientation also matters a lot. If you are able to conscientize them, let them know the reason why they have to vote, and that if they vote, these are things that are bound to happen. Definitely, you see a lot of people being patiently at the polling units to vote. No matter how time they consume at the polling unit, they will be willing to wait. But if you don't do that, don't expect somebody to just wake up from the moon and believe that if I stay this long, something tangible will come out of it. So that orientation is very, very germane in anything we do. It's just like the democracies all over the world that have suffered many years. It took people who were conscious of the fact that we need to make these people understand what we have to change, not by violence, but by doing the needful. And how do you do it? You've gone to register, that is true. You also need to be patient. Each time you get to the voting arena, you need to be patient. You wait for your turn, and once it gets to your turn, you vote. And you also vote to wait and see that your vote counts. Not by causing any commotion, not by doing anything that will hinder the process, but by seeing that, look, the right thing is done. Let me give you an example of my own state, Benue State. The present governor, His Excellency Dr. Samuel Otom, was able to conscientize a lot of people that, look, a time has come where you need to also look at what will benefit your society and stand for it. He was able to say all this often and on and make a lot of people discover that, look, if you say I'm not going to keep my PVC, or if you say I'm not going to vote because whatever it is, the elites will decide it. No, you are missing it. So with this coming from a man that has seen a lot and has gone through a lot of pains, it was obvious that everybody now started changing his mind. That's why some of us could also emerge as candidates. Not that we had the money, not that we had what it takes for people who think money is everything in politics. No. But the people were able to build on this and feel, okay, we need to select the leaders that we can access them. We can also make them know what we want them to do. And by so doing, it becomes easier for society to grow. Development will not come from the moon. Sure. It will come amongst the people. And it all depends on the political philosophy of any man that you want to entrust your destiny in his hand in the next 4 years.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. But two things which we don't speak about enough, Cynthia, is election preparedness. I must give credit to INEC, seeing how they've refused to substitute some names of people who didn't contest for primaries to make them candidates. And INEC has been able to hold their ground, which gives a bit of confidence in the commission. However, two things we never talk about, which I think causes apathy, is preparedness, in the sense that in 2015 elections and 2019 elections, election dates are set. And a week before elections, when people have traveled to their states and their constituencies to vote, election dates are moved. These people have taken permission from work to go back and vote. But now they have to go back. There's cost of transportation to go. So if I have to go to my constituency in Osbohimi, I have to travel there. Once election is moved, half of those people won't return to vote. And then secondly, even after voting, sometimes they may say there were some irregularities and there's a supplementary election. This, I believe, has played a major role in what we call apathy, because when people are ready to vote at the initial stage and it's moved, half of those people won't return. How do we hold INEC responsible not to fall to the demands of the powers that be to move elections after dates have been set and people have traveled?
Very important question, and I'm really hoping that these elections, INEC would show us something different, because like you said, rightly said so, 2015, 2019 elections were postponed. In fact, 2019, it was early morning, early hours. If you know, it was in the over the night, and we woke up and said no elections.
Exactly.
On Saturday. And I think a lot of us, Yaga Africa, other partners, who were really upset with INEC, because we had several stakeholders meeting, even on Friday, asking INEC, are you ready for the election?
I remember.
INEC said yes. So it was, even when we're seeing indicators, because how do we track if INEC is on the day before the elections, you start to track deployment of materials. If you start seeing materials getting deployed to LGs, because normally they go to state office and then to LGs before going to the racks. By the eve of elections, materials are supposed to be deployed to the racks, the registration area centers, to for getting ready materials and personnel. And when we were not seeing that level of deployment, that was why there was this conference asking INEC, we're not seeing all of this. But INEC said, oh no, everything's under control. So 2023, there are things where we believe would help INEC achieve that. First, the electoral law had provided that financial monies for elections, the funds for elections be released 1 year to the elections, which is why even notice for elections is now to be released 360 days to the elections. We believe that this early timelines, when it comes to release of funds, when it comes to notice of elections, would reasonably help INEC plan. That's one. The other part is INEC has tried Ekiti. Hopefully, we're going to Osun July 16th. INEC should be learning from that. One of the things that delays deployment is issues of logistics management. At least INEC showed that they manage logistics better in Ekiti. Even the National Union of Road Transport Workers, they did not disappoint this time. But that was because you also had the Ewi of Ekiti, traditional rulers, got them to swear an oath that anyone that defaults, they got to come after them. So who knows, maybe we should get our traditional institutions involved this time around, so that transporters that usually delay or disappoint on moving materials would not fail in the next elections. But we saw they respected their traditional institutions. So we're hoping that logistics being, if INEC works on its logistics for the next elections, learning from the previous elections, that the Electoral Commission would improve on its processes. By now, if INEC is watching, by now issues around materials for elections, there should be a clear sense on where procurement will be happening, a clear sense on when delivery will be made, a clear sense on how deployment will be made. In 2019, we also saw that some regions had later commencement. States in the southeast recorded late commencement than other regions. Some states in the south too. So if we're seeing trends where there are regions that always record late commencement of polls, INEC should use that data that we've shared with them to plan for the next election, so that there is uniformity across board. Because one thing that affects apathy is when people feel that they are disenfranchised technically, in the sense that, oh, if I notice that voting commenced in other states, people are tweeting, oh, I've started voting, but in my region we've not seen INEC officials. They begin to doubt the process. And for the next elections, INEC needs to inspire trust and confidence. So when it comes to deployment, we need to see uniformity across board. We need to see that the guideline is adhered to across board, that there are no different measures for different locations, right? Every location has the same guideline and they're adhering to that. But honestly, logistics, if INEC solves logistics, there would be no postponement. Security may be a challenge, but I also believe that the security agencies at this point have started having conversations with INEC, and there is a plan on how to manage security, because we can't afford another postponement. Like you said, people travel for elections, and when they postpone, some of them can't go back because it comes with a high cost.
Even now your team, people all travel.
Yes, it costs us a lot of money because you've deployed and then you have to withdraw people, and sometimes you've already made some payments, and Nigerians, when money gets into their account, it's not coming back. So there's also cost, not just even for political parties. I know some of our young candidates, they share their experience, because you deploy agents. They've paid agents to go. And one of them, she was saying that by the time they postponed the elections, she couldn't get additional resources to then pay them again for the new date. And she couldn't tell them, oh, I paid you already, because once you pay agents, you've paid them, right? Yeah. So everyone loses at the end of it, but voters, the people, lose the most. Because if we are not able to vote, not because we did not want to vote, but because the system made it difficult for us to vote, it is no longer our fault, the system that is denying us that right to vote.
Cynthia, thank you so much. Terungwa, all the best in your election.
Yes, thank you so much.
And INEC, we will continue to hold you accountable. Government and security agencies, the future of our elections is in your hands. We already have the Electoral Act as amended. Nigerians want to vote. We have enough time to prepare for the elections, and we must and should be ready when we have those dates. That's the much we can take on today's episode of The Weekend Show. You can follow us on social media at Weekend Show NG to send your comments and questions and suggestions. We'll also have our episodes on YouTube, Weekend Show NG. You can follow me at Andy Madaki on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and you can also follow Didi
at Didi_.
Yes, so send us your comments and questions, and we'll see you next week. For signing up the show, we have a guest artist.
Yes, our guest artist is already here standing by. His name is Ricky Lamar.
Have a blessed week. Ricky Lamar, take it away.